each of you today to our March edition of our Pinal County Community College Governing Board meeting. We will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Yarrington, would you be so kind to lead us? Next item on the agenda is call to the public. We have no one who has signed up for call to the public. We will then move to item 4 under action items, approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review? If so, I would entertain.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the February minutes as presented. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll move then to vote. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? Motion carries unanimous. Next item is the Strategic Plan 2018-2021. Dr. Elliott.
Thank you. Oh, boy. First of all, I want to recognize everyone in the audience that has helped us put our strategic plan together. So if you'd please stand if you're here, and you'll see we had a widespread participation. So thank you. This is by no means not everyone that participated. Our strategic planning committee was probably over about 30 people that was on the committee. So we're just coming back from spring break, so I'm sure a lot of people are getting caught up on work. So what we have today to present to you, you have a lot of the background information. The strategic plan that we are presenting to the board for adoption, the 2018-2021 strategic plan. This took us probably well over a year of gathering data and feedback, doing a SWOT analysis, and then the strategic planning committee came together, took all that information, looked at board monitoring reports, and you're going to see a lot of heavy influence from the board monitoring reports in the strategic plan. In particular, the monitoring reports where we're not performing as well or near the target were selected as objectives. So it was a lengthy process, and you kind of have the details of all that in your board book. So without further ado, I will present this. We'll kind of go through it, and we'll just go to the next slide there, please. The first goal is student success. Again, this aligns with board's ends 1. The statement is the same. The 4 objectives that were selected is increasing retention, increasing students' completion, the number of credits earned, or decrease the number of credits earned at certificate and degree completion. Right now, a lot of our students are graduating with over 100 credits for a 60 credit program. So we really want to focus on decreasing that and increase the number of students who transfer to a 4-year university. So those are the 4 high level objectives we picked for that one. Access is the second goal. There are 4 objectives selected for access as well. Increase the number of in-district students, increasing enrollments of students who are still in high school through dual enrollment, early college, and first step type programs. Maintain affordable tuition and fees. Again, this is one of the board's ends, is maintaining, ensuring that our tuition and fees are at or below the Arizona Community College's average, and increase the number of underserved students. And that one also, all of those are board ends as well. So they're all covered there. The next overall goal is workforce. Again, we want to increase the number of students enrolled in apprenticeships. We want to really grow our apprenticeship program, establish a method to track and measure employer satisfaction with graduates. We really need to have an understanding if our employers are satisfied, and that was also a board ends. increase the number of graduates who obtain an industry recognized credential. In other words, those programs, we need to ensure that they lead to an industry recognized credential. This is also a board end statement. Increasing full-time student enrollment in occupational programs. This is also a board ends. And establishing a method to track non-credit workforce training. The board is interested in knowing how many people are getting workforce training, so we need to find a way that we can provide that information to you. And then the next goal is community. We want to maintain a community education enrollments at 1,400. Again, that was a board ends measure as well. Increase the number of community education courses, making sure that they're the meaningful courses that people in the community want. Increase the number of performance and cultural enrichment activities. That's also a board ends. And increase community partner perception and satisfaction with the college. And that one is also a board ends. And then the final goal is the environment. Increase employee satisfaction with communication. This is also I think that's a board ends as well. Increase employee overall satisfaction is definitely a board ends. And actually, you're going to get to see how well we're performing on these here a little later today. Increase student satisfaction and increase diversity of employees to be representative of Pinal County. And you may ask, well, why not increase the diversity of students? We are already well exceeding the board ends on student diversity. We just picked the ones that we really need to focus on over the next 3 years. And then the last one is stewardship. We want to focus on decreasing expenditures per full-time employee. That's the employee student equivalency. Increase contributions from private and public sectors, and ensure budget to actual expenditures are at 98% or below. So again, these are all board ends as well, all three of these. And the last one is infrastructure. We want to make sure that we have state-of-the-art technology and facilities, and I think we're well on our way to accomplishing that. Establish a deferred maintenance budget to support campus infrastructure and growth. That is actually on the budget report today, that we don't want to have to rely on bonds or tax revenue to keep our buildings up. We need to put reserves away to ensure that we aren't tapping into other people's pockets to keep our facilities in upkeep, and increase efforts to ensure campus safety. And as you saw at the last board meeting, we had low monitoring report results, or not low, but less than satisfactory for the perception of campus security. So that became one of our objectives. And that is all of them for your consideration. And I will entertain any questions you might have.
Questions for Dr. Elliott? We need,
Have one. I have one. Oh, Dr. Elliott, it's here. I love this. You did a wonderful job. But it doesn't stand out, and I'm wondering if the values, the act, could be put into some sort of framework. And the reason for that is to frame all the data that you're going to be collecting, etc., which will show up in probably operational documents.
You're correct. You're right. They're all tied and linked, and I think you're talking about the values, accountability, that we did, that you guys approved at the last board meeting. I think what I'm hearing you say is, are we going to act on the data and the information that is going to be collected to measure these? Am I hearing you right? Okay. And the answer is yes, through operational plans and also through what you see in the board monitor reports where we talk about planned improvements and recent improvements. Those are derived from how we're performing on these measures. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I brought up the framework, and this is just fancy stuff to me after working on so many frameworks. But for the public, if you had something like a triangle and at the apex you would have the A, and then at the bottom you'd have C, T. So you would have inside your body of information that you're going to be looking at to see if act is taking place.
I think that's really good feedback. Thank you. We'll definitely do that. Other questions? Comments?
I would make the motion that, excuse me, that the board approve the strategic plan.
Have a motion to approve the strategic plan 2018 through 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We now have a strategic plan for the coming 3 years. Very good. Next item on the agenda is sabbatical policy, second reading and adoption. Brandy Clark.
Good afternoon, Governing Board President Gibson, Governing Board members, President Elliott, Mary Lou, staff, students, and guests. This afternoon, I present to you the second reading of the revised sabbatical policy. I think I just turned that off. Okay. These revisions come at the request of faculty. These changes will allow for a full-time employee to take a regular or a working sabbatical leave to study, research, or participate in work experience to enhance competencies that will contribute to institutional growth. This is the second reading, and it is for your consideration and action. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
This is our second reading. We did read it once before, and this is the second time. Are there any questions at this time?
Yes. And first of all, Brandy does excellent work. So this is kind of a skinny policy, and I know it's going to be backed by operational documents, but I think in the policy there should be a paragraph preceding the first one, regular sabbatical, consideration of who qualifies. Now, it's made clear that it would be a full-time faculty, full-time staff, etc. But I think that needs a little more meat on the skeleton. And then at the end, that there would be a simple statement saying that all of the objectives that the sabbatical candidate pursued will be reviewed by the sabbatical committee. Am I being clear? Or
No, you are very clear. One of the things that we've done as part of our policy revamp project is really kind of make many of our policies skinny, as you call them, and delete and remove out any verbiage or any information that could be added as part of a procedure. So all of the items that you did bring up are indeed included in the procedure. You just don't see it in the policy on its face. Basically, our policy is this is what we're trying to accomplish. And then the procedure really gets into the details of the individual criteria of who's eligible, how the committee works, how the approval process works, so on and so forth.
Will we get to see a copy, a draft copy of this procedural manual?
We can definitely share the procedure. Generally, we don't bring that forward to the board because the board only approves policy. The procedure does go through somewhat of a similar process. Any changes are made to it, and then it's sent out to constituency group. There is an 8-day review period where we comment, a comment period, feedback period, as you, I would collect that information, anything that needs to be added or questions that may have in reference to that, we incorporate that, send it back out for review, and then that would go, that would be approved in addition to an approval from you all. So I can definitely share that procedure with you as well if you'd like to see that.
I think that's best because at the last meeting, I asked about the inclusion of the board in the development of the of the strategic plan. And I would like to see more board inclusion. And I know it's more reading, but I think we're all wearing reading glasses now. So, it shouldn't be much of a problem, and we have to break with tradition. Excuse me. We need to be closer, and I think this is one way to bring us closer with the teams.
I think we have to be really careful about not getting the board into day-to-day operations. We're happy to share things with you, but we have to be really careful because of accreditation issues. So I think that's why you've only seen policy, but I think Brandy has, we're happy to share with you the procedure, and you can provide some feedback if you feel that you want to provide feedback on the procedure, but procedure is more operational and your role is more policy. But again, we're very transparent. We don't mind sharing, and your feedback is always welcome. It's just bringing it officially to this body to do approval could create some accreditation concerns about the governing board acts autonomously and remains out of day-to-day operations, and procedure would be considered typically day-to-day. But definitely your feedback would be welcome.
So I have a question. Are all the procedures linked to a specific policy?
Yes. One thing that we did when I came, I noticed that we had procedure embedded in policy, and sometimes we had policy embedded in procedure. And to be honest, it's kind of over the years, some of our procedures and policies haven't been updated since 1998, and so there was a lot of problem with it. So we're doing a major overhaul with all the policies and procedures. And one thing we've done, Dan, is we've got policy with an associated procedure, but in some cases we may have policy, associated procedure, and then we've created this standard operating guide. Because some policies have a procedure, some may not have a procedure, but they have standard operating principles. Is that what we're calling it, or a guide? And so we're really trying to pull those things out, because policy is the legal binding thing that we would be up against if we should ever get into situations. Procedures may change. You may go to an electronic form instead of a paper form. And so procedures may need to be reviewed more frequently than policy. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a major, major process, and it's probably going to take us a good year and a half to get through all of it. If you've ever seen our old, and Dr. Banks is nodding her head, she understands what I'm saying, is that we had some policy written in procedure, which was problematic. So.
And with approval authority for the procedure, is it dependent on the procedure itself, or does everything, do you have final authority?
Usually the policy owner would have final authority. So like if it's a budget procedure, then it would be Chris's responsibility to, because he's in legal terms, he would be that policy owner, because ultimately the board is the policy owner, but he's the one that has to manage that policy. He's the one that has to make sure people are following the budget process. So he would be the owner of the budget procedure as well.
Right.
But we work on them all together. We look at them through our executive leadership team meetings. We review every new policy. We review procedures. We provide feedback. So ultimately, I'd say it was probably me and the VPs that at the end of the day are ultimately responsible for all the procedures being accurate.
And if I can add to that, we do have a policy committee that's made up of 3 members of each constituency group here at the college. They review the initial policy. They vote to send it out to constituency for review and feedback. Once that information comes back, they do a final review and they make the determination, okay, it's ready to go to the board for the first and second reading. Policy is the same. There is the same review period, except once that review and feedback is incorporated into the procedure, it can go live immediately. It doesn't require a board approval.
One more question. Is there a periodic review schedule for the procedures, or is that done as the procedure owner directs or feels that something changed that would require a change?
So you will start seeing this. We're kind of, the ball is moving and we're starting to review our old policies and procedures. You're going to see, if you looked at this new format and you looked at the old format, it's completely different. And so everything is getting switched to the new format. All policies will have a review period, whether it's annually, and you will start seeing those come forward to you in cycles. So, and it does indicate the review schedule, for example, on this is annually. So you will start seeing that. If there's no changes, it won't come to you for additional approval, but it will show an update that it has been reviewed.
And this is something I initiated when I came, because again, it's another accreditation issue, is when we had some policies that had not been reviewed since 1998 and we didn't have a process in place. And I'm sure they're not real happy about this process because it is labor intensive, but it needed to be done. And so we will do regular reviews of policies and procedures annually. Just, it's a good practice.
Thank you.
Are there comments or questions? I would agree that it is the purview of the board to consider and approve policy. I think that is one of our assignments, and I would agree with Dr. Elliott that the board is the final owner of policy for the college. With that stated, I would also say that procedures, I think, fall well within the domain of the administrative leadership that has responsibility for that particular sector. With that in mind, then I would entertain a motion to, or further discussion first. I would entertain further discussion about the policy in itself as written. Is the policy sufficient as written?
I would make the motion that the board adopt the policy because, as Dr. Elliott said, this sort of tells how to do it or what we want, and administration decides how they're going to do it. So that's going to come up in the procedures.
Right.
So
I have a motion to approve the sabbatical policy. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Those in favor of approving the sabbatical policy, second reading, those in favor say aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tuition and fee schedule adoption. Chris Wadka.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Governing Board members, Madam President, Secretary, and all colleagues and guests this afternoon. Get used to this. Before you is action item to approve the tuition and fees for the academic year 18 and 19. This was brought forward at last month's board meeting. No additional changes since that board meeting. You see all the areas that are going to be impacted are shaded. The key being the tuition, we are keeping the same level, $86, no increase in tuition for next fiscal year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we need formal action this afternoon.
Chris, just a couple comments.
Yes.
I see a trend here, having been in the audience for several years and now sitting up here for several years.
Mhm.
I see this trend of tuition just rising, rising, and rising.
Mhm.
And I think eventually students and neighbors and friends and relatives, they're going to be looking at this and they're going to say, are we turning this into the cost of a 4-year school versus a 2-year? So I think we should take a look down the road, not necessarily this year. We need to take a look down the road that we need to slow down this tremendous rise here, and something to consider over the next several months or year or so. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's always a difficult situation. We're still significantly below our universities.
But no, you can't count universities. You
I understand.
can only count community colleges.
I only count community colleges, and also when I look at it, I look at the other two major sources of revenue, which are local taxes, as we know, and we don't like increasing taxes.
I've been through that.
State dollars, as you know, have dwindled down to less than double digits of our operating budget, so that just leaves the other side being tuition. So it's really a complicated formula when you look at increasing one revenue and keeping a couple others stable, or decreasing them all or increasing them all. So it's always a difficult conversation to have. But I totally agree with you. Based on the board goals, is to stay within the average, and that's where we are currently, is within the average of rural community colleges. And I do know that just for this year's tuition increases, I believe 8 out of 10 schools did increase their tuition. So we're just one of 2 that has kept it steady.
This is 8 out of 10 community colleges.
8 of our 10 community colleges in the state did increase tuition this year.
I'm just bringing it up because we see a trend here, and the student we're looking for looks for a 2-year community college where he or she can afford.
Mhm.
And,
Correct.
we need to never lose track of this.
Right. Agreed.
Thank you.
If I might add, just something, this year when we had our tuition discussions, and this really speaks to becoming a more data-driven institution. Chris asked me, he said, should we raise tuition this year? And I said, well, if we go to the board's monitoring report and look at where they want us to be and what you're telling me everyone else is going to do, we probably don't need to ask for a raise, because we need to get our number back down where the board wanted it to be. And it made the decision very easy for us to decide we are not raising tuition this year, to stay in line with what the board has asked.
As I said, I just think we should look at this very strongly in the next couple months, couple years, because it's. I'm gently reminded that this is a 2-year community college,
Absolutely.
not a 4-year college. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think part of the other side of the equation, the cost control, impacts that. So to me, this is a reflection of some of that cost control that's been put in place over the last 12 to 18 months. And I don't think the staff and the president would be recommending to keep it the same, this tuition the same, if you weren't able to see that that would satisfy what the costs or expenditures are for the college. So I applaud that, and I think it's in the right direction. And I can see, as further cost control and lean management practices get put into place, and that I see, as evident across the board in the last 18 months, that we would see maybe a downward trend, or at least a slowing down, as my colleague has suggested.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of our strategic goals to remain affordable and good stewards. And if every of the other community colleges raise what they say they're going to do, us staying at $86 per credit hour will put us $51 below for 30 hours, below all the community college average. So we really are widening the gap with keeping it the same this year.
Just another gentle reminder. I don't think my neighbors' kids really give a darn about cost and what have you. They just see the cost of tuition.
Yeah.
And so when I see them to make sure they go to the community college because they're good friends, they don't look at anything else except the cost of tuition.
It's true.
Just another thought.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Um, I had a question. The page after the chart showing the rise of tuition, there's several pages about they're titled proposed and fee schedules. And I had some questions regarding those pages. Is this an appropriate time to ask?
You can certainly ask. Yes, absolutely. A lot of these changes were brought forward from the academic folks in terms of various course fees. That if I can't answer, I'm sure that Dr. Gillian can answer.
Okay. The first one is we've had a college for kids, and that's going to be aced out for this coming year, looks like, except for AVC. Are we losing the grant? Are we operating at minimal grant money? Is that why Signal Peak and Superstition Mountain won't have college for kids?
I can't. This is not grant funded. This would be college funded. I can't answer why Signal Peak and Superstition Mountain is canceling the College for Kids program. Maybe Mary Kay could answer that.
What I can speak to is that we actually have not run college for kids at any of the campuses except Arrowhead for quite some time. And it was because we had declining participation at our in our more urban areas, since there's a variety of activities for kids that are maybe more substantial than what we were able to offer, given the money we were able to raise for those programs. At Aravaipa, we've had substantial interest, and we run the camps primarily from local donations, so that the families pay very little for them. And so that's been really a viable option for them, and the children out there don't have very many other opportunities. So at the moment, we're holding steady with that. We're not charging the additional fees because we are not running those, but we are going to continue to investigate to see if there might be a more viable option for that. And let me just add that we did do something like a summer camp last year for advanced manufacturing. It was the Yada Youth Academy. We did run that with local contributions, and we would like to do that again. But it's a different model. It's not really college for kids. It's pre-college for teenagers. So we're not dropping the idea, but we're just not going to be charging for something that we're not doing right now because it's not so viable. We would like to make it viable.
Because I noticed that you're going to have a math boot camp.
Yes. Yeah, those are different beasts, but we are going to be running boot camps at a number of locations.
Which is dear to my heart. So I thank you for doing that. On the second page, additional course fees. Now, I'm not going to waste anybody's time going through them because a lot of the acronyms I don't have a code sheet to crosswalk to. So why all of a sudden are we having fees in areas like HIM, whatever that is, etc.?
Yeah, please.
So I think there are two increases that are probably significant this year, and HIM is Health Information Management. We have a couple of added fees in some of the health areas, and what they are for is to pay for the board exams at the end. And this is for a couple of reasons. We've noticed that many of our sister colleges do this. They include that as part of their program. And we find that because it's not part of our program, we have many students who take our programming, but then they don't take the board exams, or they delay taking the board exams, which, and the delay is worse for them because then they're several semesters out and they don't do very well. So our goal is to collect those fees board exams are in place for them and that they complete those exams as a part of their program and they're ready to go to work. It will also raise our success rate for the board licensure.
And this is a strategy tied to the board's ends to increase the number of students with the industry recognized credential at the end of occupational programs. And this is an incentive for those students to take their board exam because they've already paid for it essentially, then we're having to pay for it on the end.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty.
Thank you for the questions and comments. Are there any other discussion items? It is proposed that we adopt the tuition and fee schedule as presented. Could I have a motion, please?
I would make that motion because I'm happy to see that we're keeping things.
I have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the tuition and fee schedule as presented. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is the consideration of the consent agenda. All items are consent matters unless they are removed from the consent agenda at this time. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any governing board member upon motion duly made, seconded, and approved. Consent agenda items will be approved by one motion, and there will be no specific discussion of these items. Items removed from the consent agenda will be approved as a non-consent agenda item. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
I have a second. Discussion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Can I abstain on this one?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'd like to not vote on this one.
So I have 4 yes and 1 abstention. Motion carries. Let's move to the reports. We'll start with the AADGB representative report. Dr. Banks.
We did not have a meeting. I am getting the feeling, but I have to check this with the chair, that we'll probably meet every other month.
Thank you. Item 15, report from Central Arizona College President, Dr. Elliott.
Good afternoon, board members and our faculty, staff, and guests on this lovely afternoon. My legislative update, I'm going to keep it a little short because all the bills that we've discussed previously have that passed the House that impact community colleges. They're all currently sitting in the Senate committees for review. So I don't really have anything substantial to add as an update. Some key district updates. Again, we're coming off of spring break, so I don't have a whole lot to share with you right now, but I do want to talk about the 5 CAC students that many of you were able to see get recognized in the Phi Theta Kappa All-American All-Arizona Academic Team. And we had 5 students selected: Holly Logan, Sophia Panberg, Bernice Paleo, and Matthew Fode. And we were really proud of them, and some of you got to be there and recognize that. On March 9th, nearly 100 CAC supervisors participated in an all-day workshop around the Trust Edge that we've been talking about for the supervisor training, and I was really excited to see that many people show up on a Friday, give up their Friday to come learn how to develop trust with their teams and within their departments and divisions. And also, CAC's English department recently published 2 books, and the royalties from these books totaled about $15,000. And it will be used for student scholarships, speakers, and special programs at CAC, and potentially an English boot camp. So we were talking about boot camp earlier. This effort was a collaboration of all of our English faculty, but it was really spearheaded by Colette Dragon, Tatiana Keeling, and Shelley Decker. So if you see them, tell them kudos and congratulations. You have a couple correspondences in your board book today. One is the note from Shelley Gillespie thanking us for our contribution to the COPA Shorts. And I know Vice Chair Dan Miller attended that event. And a note from Patagonia Future Farmers of America for our role in hosting the South Central District FFA competition. And if you remember, I mentioned this last month, we had over 200 students from all over the Southwest here competing. It was a really spectacular event. And that's all I have in my report, but I will entertain any questions.
Questions for Dr. Elliott? No questions. Thank you very much for your report. I appreciate it. Business affairs reports. Mr. Waka.
Thank you and good afternoon once again. We have 4 items for your information this afternoon. First item is monthly budget report. It is the reports for the month of February 2018. And it shows the district's general fund expenditures and committed funds are at about 82.24% of the total budget, which is about a 2.2% increase compared to February of 2017 when we were at slightly over 80%. At this time, we're now 8 months completed of our fiscal year, and we are really in terms of where we should be with our revenues and expenditures. Any questions on the budget report?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. The next item is listing of purchases made over $20,000. We have a handful of them this afternoon. First one is video systems for the Santan campus. Stanley Convergent Security Solutions out of Palatine, Illinois, $83,320.80, and that is to purchase the video systems to external cameras for the Santan campus. Next item is janitorial supplies, February through June of 18. Waxy Sanitary Supply of Mesa, Arizona, $25,000. That is to open a PO to purchase janitorial supplies for the district. Next one is VMware Licensing, CDWG, Incorporated, Vernon Hills, Illinois, $24,991.79. And that is to purchase the licensing to replicate servers from SPC to the Signal Superstition Mountain campus. Next one is Lightweight Access Points, Dimension Data, Charlotte, North Carolina, $87,267.65. That is to replace the wireless access points throughout the district. Next one, AV Classroom Upgrades, Troxel Communications Incorporated, Phoenix, Arizona, $59,091.67. And that is to upgrade the classrooms throughout the district, the AV classrooms. The next one is ENT Storage Replacement, CCB Technology, Inc., Racine, Wisconsin, $49,595.23. That is once again to purchase storage to replicate the servers from the Signal Peak campus to Superstition Mountain campus. And the last one is network cabling configuration, Herbert Fitzpatrick, Casa Grande, Arizona, an even $20,000, and that is to for cabling configuration, that is to run the cabling throughout the district. Any questions on the purchases?
Please comment.
Okay. I think the my colleagues and Mr. Waka know that I look at this to see how many contracts are awarded for locally, county, state, and this month it's about 30%. And I just bring it up at this point because it kind of ties into the strategic plan on the community about increasing community partner perception and satisfaction with CAC. To know that we are also part of the economic engine in Pinal County, and it's nice to see that. And I realize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but some of these were bound to go to Illinois or Wisconsin or something because of an overarching contract requirement. But where we can purchase locally, I think you're doing a great job. I don't know if 30 is the right number or not, 30%, but I do appreciate the focus on shopping local. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good comment. Other comments or questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
The next item is our monthly ERP update. Listed there are a number of points for your information. I think the one thing I'd like to key on, though, is the last bulleted paragraph points, in where, since we've gone live with the Student Nexus system back in early November, we've had about 50 issues that have been opened up in terms of issues of improvement that we could have, that staff have opened up with our system, and we are down to just 7 priority issues that we're working on the student side. And we're continuing to work on the finance, payroll, human resources system, which will be going live our new fiscal year. So, any questions on the ERP progress?
No questions.
Okay. Then the last thing I have for this afternoon is a construction update. And here this afternoon is Austin King with DPR Construction and Daniel Childers with Architecton. So there are our three-headed monster, CAC, our contractors, and our architects. So they will do a little slideshow, and happy to answer any questions you may have in regards to our construction. We're gearing up. I believe June 29th is the turnover of the keys, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so we're around the corner. Turn it over to Austin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the first one we wanted to review is just the PowerPoint that's on there, and that'll be our construction status update. So again, I'm Austin King. I'm with DPR Construction. We're the general contractor that's overseeing construction on both Science and Union sites. We were here last, I think it was about 7 months ago when we presented last to this group. So a lot of progress has happened since then. We really just wanted to show kind of some cool pictures of photos of progress we've made along the way, kind of give you an idea for what we've accomplished over those past 7 months, and then give you a quick snapshot of where we stand, schedule, budget, safety, all the things we care about on the construction side, as well as just a quick look forward to finishing up by the June 29th date, where we're handing over the keys to the CAC folks. So first slide is just kind of a recap of where we were. So last time we were in this room, this was a picture of both sites as of that date. A lot of utilities, a lot of digging in the ground, a lot of stuff that nobody probably cared a whole lot about because it looks like dirt. So since then, if you want to go to the next slide, I included a lot of pictures just to kind of show some cool pictures. So we'll jump through these pretty quick. But so this is from one of our late night pours at the Union Building. It's our concrete contractor. So far, to date, we've poured about 70,000 square foot of slab on grade or structural slab concrete. This is one of those pours. So you kind of see the whole big group of guys, about 35 guys out there that were involved in this pour specifically. You can kind of see the big machine in the background, which is a machine that will auto level out and adjust itself to get the concrete nice and flat and perfect across the slab. So that was actually the first time I've used one of those on a project, so it was kind of a neat tool to see. It's called a laser screed, if you're interested. A few of the other photos, so you can see kind of top left-hand corner, a little bit of a unique pour we did for the science building. We actually erected the steel on the building first and then poured the slab in after it, which is kind of may seem counterintuitive going back down to the ground floor after you've already built up. But this is them making that pour, so a little bit of logistics involved there. You can see the top right is the completed pour for the second floor of science, and kind of gives you an idea for the view you'll see from that second floor of the science building off to the east. And then the other two are just us prepping for the slab, and that yellow stuff you see there on the ground is not a slip and slide. It is a vapor barrier, so it helps beneath the concrete so that when you put down carpeting and flooring material like that, you don't get moisture coming up to the slab and disrupting that adhesive that connects the flooring. So next slide. This was a really cool photo our superintendent snapped on the science building. the east side of the science building, the second floor is actually cantilevered out, so there's not a vertical support structure under a chunk of that east side of the science building. So that guy there is making a moment weld on one of those pieces of cantilevered steel, and just was a really good picture. So, go to the next one. This is the Union site. So this was early on in the steel erection at the Union site, right at sunrise. We'd just gotten the crane set up for the day out there. Another just kind of a cool picture. It gives you a little bit of an idea of really the southern half of the Union building, where we've got a lot of different spaces happening. The public safety is over there, the bookstore, our kitchen that'll serve the food service areas. So a lot of multi-tiered steel happening over on that side. Next slide. And then this is the sign. This is my favorite picture so far of the science building. And this is kind of a cloudy day where you can see a majority of the steel up. You really are seeing the building start to take its shape. You can see that kind of east side steel I was mentioning that cantilevers out. You don't see any columns underneath there supporting that. So it's a pretty cool, unique steel structure on that side of the building. Next slide. So this install is something that was pretty unique to this project. All the panels you see a little crane there in the background, and then a load of metal sitting there on a flatbed truck. So these are panels that we actually prefabricated in one of our off-site facilities, and the production facility that we run is fully automated, so it was all automated robots that were welding these panel units together, versus the traditional methodology of doing that would be to have guys out there, screwing the framing together and doing it on site on the side of the building. So going this way saved us about a month almost on the schedule. We were able to install all these panels in less than 2 days, whereas the traditional method would have taken roughly a month to install. So especially given the science site is a little tighter in there, so there's a little less room for laying down materials and things of that nature, we were able to expedite the install and save on our laydown space to keep the people productive who need the space on site. And then the next slide is going to show us a little more from that install, so you can kind of see the guys there swinging the panels in. If you looked on the far left-hand side, that's one of our lead supervisors for our drywall and framing team, who's there doing quality control on the install, checking all of the connections, making sure everything's going in correctly per the structural engineering. That's about it on that one. One other thing to mention is the flatbed truck all those panels are on, when they are staged to come out to the site, they're set up so that they're in the exact sequence that they need to go up on in the building. So the previous slide kind of showed numbers on each of those panels. That is the actual install schedule. So they're able to pull up the truck and then pick everything with the crane directly off the trailer right on the side of the building. So pretty productive install. It was cool. I don't remember what the next slide is. What's our next one? A little bit more of the exterior skin. So aside from the metal frame, you can see some of the concrete masonry units. And then one of the unique architectural features that we have on the science building is this, I call it staggered pattern. What's
undulating
block.
CMU. Yeah, it's the official word for it.
So it's pretty unique, and the picture doesn't do it justice. But when you see the final product, you'll be pretty impressed with how that's turned out. The masons did a really good job installing it, and obviously the design team's idea to kind of add that feature to the project. It's turning out to look really cool. So.
Is it flush on the backside?
No, they come in on the backside, but there's a wall behind it that gets framed in, that where all the electrical and things hide within that wall, and gives a flat finish on the inside. Next slide, this is our roofing. So during this stage, the exterior skin stage is when we're trying to get the building dry. So we want to be able to get everything dried in so we can move forward with all the pretty stuff that can't get wet, otherwise it gets damaged, right? So this is some of the roofing that's going over the big canopy section at the Union building. And it's really just a fairly quick install. They did that over kind of a 2-week period or so. And I think the next slide shows the same different roofing type system, similar to what's on this building actually, over at Science on the left-hand side, and then again on the south half of the Union building on the right. And next slide is That is a shot of one of our more congested areas where we have ductwork, electrical, the MEP systems as we abbreviate it to. So all of the kind of the organs of the building, your air distribution, your electrical, low voltage data, all that kind of stuff. So that's a shot of the union servery area, where to run a kitchen you have to have a lot of exhaust, you have to have a lot of air coming in. There's a lot of mechanical systems that have to go in place there. So there's kind of a big conglomeration of mechanical and electrical systems going in there. A little more the MEP install. This is exterior, just light fixtures going in on the south side of the Union building. And then next, this is our air handling unit on Union. So this is kind of a cool unit. So it's the air conditioning unit, and it's actually two units that are put together and built within one enclosure, and then you access them, and Ernesto would certainly appreciate this, that you get to access all the maintenance points on these from within side of this structure, so that when you're working and checking in on these systems and maintaining them, you're doing it within a conditioned space. You're not cooking out on the roof to go and do it. And it saves on space. Just another quick shot of some of the MEP rough, and those are the hot water heaters over in the science building, or Union building. And then this is just as of last week, so we're really kind of through, we've got the structure up, we've got the exterior skin on the building, on both buildings really, and we're starting on all the pretty finish work. So that's some of the tile that you'll see on the east side of the servery in Union. A couple different types of tile in the building, but that was one of the ones we just put in. I think the next slide is going to show our ceilings are starting to go in, so the finished ceilings, similar to the grid that's in this room. We've got the grid in there so that we can start doing all the trim work around it and getting everything starting to look pretty in there. And then this is a shot of the north side of the Union building. So this is the big canopy structure that's going to overhang the outdoor terrace patio space. We just started painting on that last week. We've got the finished ephes stucco type material on the front there, so all the finish work's really starting together, and you're really starting to get a feel for what the building's going to look like at the end of the day. And this is the latest aerial view, courtesy of my friend Dan here, who flies his drone on a weekly basis. You might see that flying around campus to capture all the awesome aerial images of both sides. So that's Union as of last week. And then the next one will show kind of a quick snapshot of science. So really, with where we're at today, the next slide should give us a overview of our remaining schedule. So same slide I showed last time we were here, but our bar is moved a lot further to the right now. So we basically have 3 months left on the construction phase of the project. We're wrapping up our MEP infrastructure, the building envelope, exterior skin, and then really working hard and heavy on all the interior finish work. So like Chris said, come June 29th, we'll be handing over the keys and ready for folks to start moving in and getting set up in the new space. And then the last slide is the kind of the big three metrics for the construction side is safety. Over 120,000 hours worked to date. We're averaging about 120 guys on site right now, or people, not just guys. 0 injuries. We've had 8 first aid incidents. So first aids being something that's, when nicks get cuts, scrapes, bruises, things that are treatable, on site without any significant impact. So we've only had 8 of those even today. So very safe, and really positive out there with the guys on site, and everything's going really well. Budget-wise, on budget, schedule-wise, on time, things are going well. And that's all I have. Dan has a much cooler presentation.
Yeah, now that all that technical stuff's out of the way. So kind of branching off of what Austin said, I think the last time we were here to present, we had a video that really just showed, the nice green space, and then we made a big dirt hole in it. So I think the video you'll see now is kind of a great progression of that space to really show how these buildings would fit on the site, how they kind of integrate into campus really well. And then the next time we present, I imagine we'll have all the grass back in, the trees will be planted, so you'll really kind of get to see how that building assimilates with the landscape around it. And also just backing up before we show the video, I think DPR and architect, and I've really appreciated working on campus. This is a pretty special campus you guys have here, given it's next to the mountain, kind of secluded. So this kind of desert seclusion next to a mountain is really special for architects to work on, given that most of our projects are in Phoenix, which is kind of a flat, non-exciting landscape. So we really appreciated this project out here. Really appreciate Chris Wadka, Candace Ross, Ernesto Valenzuela, and Mark Salas, who are our executive committee. Really done a great job on this project, helping us along. Without further ado, we can shoot the video. So without any questions, comments,
Questions for the
critiques?
Gladys? Do you have a question? I have a couple of questions. If anybody else has any. Number one, I assume from the report that there were no budget surprises. That's pretty
No.
cool.
Yeah.
That's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Question number two is, what was it that surprised you most about the project, or things that have happened along the line? I
Well,
know
the
for a
critters
fact that
we've
that
been
ground
running-
has a lot of caliche in it, and I thought maybe that might have been a
That has been
surprise.
challenge.
There were, we ran into a few things that were unexpected during that early phase of the project. I think we talked a little bit about that last time we were here with just the existing utilities. There's a lot of old utilities on campus that aren't necessarily installed right where they're supposed to be installed. So we found a few surprises on that, but we worked through all those and really stayed on schedule through all the hiccups and bumps in the road with that, and we're able to, we're used to that. So surprises, you expect surprises, so they're not really surprises. You know what I mean? Aside from that, the critters, we found some interesting. There was a Gila monster the other day that we saw. I think we had a few skunks that were trying to take shelter under our trailers for a while when we first got out here. But no, aside from that, it's been
I think a happy surprise would be how committed and passionate not only your students, your faculty, and your staff are, on campus. I think, we hear a lot of the good and the bad that people perceive of what we're doing on the project. So I think it's good to see and good to get that feedback when we're working on projects like this.
I don't think it's any surprise historically that since this campus was first built, that there has been a lot of interest amongst the various communities in the area. And it's almost like this campus belongs to everybody and to nobody. And from that standpoint, I think I'm not surprised that there is feedback coming in. Their communities are very proud of this campus, and as they all of our campuses. Any other comments or questions?
I would make a comment that this is far cry from 1983 when I was first elected to the board, and the science building at that time was sort of out of date. Back in the 80s. I was so excited.
You want us to save a piece when we do the demo? We can save a little piece. There you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your report.
Thank
Very
you.
good. The next item on the agenda is item 17, monitoring reports. Brandy Clark.
Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Wow, that's really loud.
It is rather sensitive, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm very excited to present to you this afternoon Board Ends 5. However, I'm thinking I should have added some cool drone video and some music to my presentation because it's not going to be that exciting. No, seriously, very excited about Ends 5. If you can go to the next slide. In Ends 5, we are talking specific to the strategic goal of environment, where we are measuring to ensure a safe, sustainable environment that promotes learning, communication, diversity, and satisfaction among students, faculty, and staff. We have chosen to measure our environment by 4 ways. First way is employee satisfaction through communication, specifically to communication, employee satisfaction, overall satisfaction, employee retention rates, and through employee diversity as it compares to that of Pinal County. So with that, I will dive into 5.6, which is talking specifically about employee satisfaction specific to that of communication. One way we measure that is through the Great Colleges to Work For survey that measures specifically to employee satisfaction in regards to that communication. As you recall, in 2017, the board set a target. They wanted that employee satisfaction target to be 95%. Unfortunately, this is an area that we have struggled with over many years. As you can see, 2014 up through 2017, we are kind of waffling around the 50% rate. Definitely not where we want to be. And this is an area that we have taken very serious and have done actually been quite busy in this area, doing what we can to improve this employee satisfaction rate through communication. So some of the recent improvements that we've made are Dr. Elliott initiated a communication task force that is made up of constituency representation throughout the district. And they are assisting with recommending and developing strategies on how we can best communicate throughout our district. Another way is through, I think I'm just going to stand back here. I'm so sorry. We have rolled out another plan that with district-wide large-scale initiatives, we require a process that we have to go through. So all initiatives that really impact a district-wide require a specific communication plan, a feedback period, and a test group to test all those out before we go live on any type of an overall large-scale plan. We've made improvements to the President's Pencil. In addition, we have began to create a spreadsheet or kind of a landing place called CAC on the Horizon, where employees can go. It's updated probably on a daily basis, where they can see initiatives that we're working on, that are being worked on, as well as things that are up and coming, or things that have retired and fallen off on, that are no longer, we call them off the horizon. So that was one of the feedback items that we received, as employees felt like they were learning about things after the fact and not before. And so we are listing these on the horizon. Dr. Elliott has implemented her Java with Jackie, which I think are quite popular. Informal conversations, question and answer sessions that are held at each campus each semester. In addition, the VPs last year did sort of the same thing. We had many different events. I had HR happy hour. Chris had What the Finance. We had Sippin' with Student Services. We had the Academic Roadshow. And then the feedback was oh my gosh, there were so many things I needed to go to. So this semester, and I think it's going to go well, we are just doing visiting with the VP. So we kind of have an open forum where employees can come on in and ask questions. You know, if they want to know what's up and coming, if they have a suggestion, idea for improvement, if they have a gripe, shoot, if they even want to know, I heard this rumor, is it true? We will talk about it. So that's something that we've implemented in addition to help with improving that employee satisfaction through communication. And lastly, Dr. Elliott has expanded our president's cabinet to include presidents from the employee constituency group. So now not only do we have administration on cabinet, we also have representation from support, managerial and technical, and faculty constituency groups. So those are some of the recent improvements that we've made to try to drive our score up higher in this area in regards to employees' satisfaction and communication. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to kind of talk about these next two kind of together because they do overlap. A lot of the recent and planned improvements do kind of overlap together. So the second way we measure our environment is through employee overall satisfaction. Again, this is how we demonstrate a positive environment that promotes faculty and staff satisfaction. We do measure this again through the Great Colleges to Work For survey. The board set a target of 80%. Although we have been below that target, as you can see, we have made consistent improvement from 2014, 15, 16, and on up through 17. So glad to see that we are climbing with that overall satisfaction. Obviously, like to get that a little higher as well. The next slide I'm going to have you go to is we're going to talk about employee retention rates. And this was a goal and a target that was set on the last strategic plan. So the 2012-2017 strategic plan, where the overall campus environment specific through retention rates is measured. The board adopted that rate of 90%. Although we've dropped below a little bit, we're not quite at 90%, but we're not too bad. CAC retains many of their employees. We don't have a lot of employees that leave. So we've made some planned and recent improvements that are going to kind of talk about both areas. So to improve and increase that employee satisfaction as well as increase those retention rates, we've implemented a new employee recognition program. The feedback from staff was we missed those things. They had them for a long time and then they kind of went by the wayside, and now they asked for those to come back. So we have, this will be our second annual ice cream social, where we have recognized for years of service, retirements, those types of things that employees really enjoyed that. In addition, our professional development committee is also taking on the role as our employee engagement committee now. So they are also scheduling 2 annual events a year that are family oriented or employee oriented to get those employees kind of back in the swing of things and feeling appreciated once again. Dr. Elliott expanded her President's Holiday Reception. So I think in the past it was a board event, and now you can't get in that door. That door is so busy for like 5 hours for the employee recognition or for the holiday reception. Dr. Elliott implemented the supervisory training that took place in March, where we learned about the trust edge and tried brought all of our supervisors together to learn about the 8 pillars of trust in hopes that they take those back and incorporate those into their daily departments and divisions. Recently, we implemented a process called rounding, or we are calling it check in and chat, for CAC for short. And basically, the expectation is every supervisor is required to round or meet with every full-time staff member for 10 to 15 minutes. And it's basically a check-in. Hey, how's it going? What can I do for you? What do you need from me? Do you have all the tools to do your job? Is there anybody that's been extremely helpful that I can thank? If there's something that you need from me, when can I get back to you, and when will I get back to you? So it's a way to open that two-way communication between that supervisor and that employee. So that's something new that was implemented in January, February of this year. In addition, one of the things, let me add one more thing. In addition, we have kind of revamped our new hire orientation program. In the past, that was held, we referred to it as the Learning College Academy, and that was held twice a year. So there were times when somebody was hired, but then they really wouldn't get the orientation for 5 months because it was only 2 times a year. So now we hold an orientation and we hire employees on the first Monday of every month. And so they get the tools on the first day that they start. So we've only had it one time thus far, but it's been the feedback has been really positive with that change. Through different feedback sources, our campus climate, through exit interviews, or just through the HR happy hours, some of the feedback that I received was, we really want more opportunity for advancement within the college. It's a great place to work, but sometimes I feel stuck. Unless my supervisor leaves or retires, I really have nowhere to go. So one of the things we did to try to open that door to provide a greater opportunity for advancement is revitalize our upward mobility program. And that's a way to professionally grow our internal talent. So that's one thing that we've implemented just recently. On the horizon, what's coming next are some more exciting things. We are going to be revising and updating our job analysis and our evaluation system to be able to provide greater flexibility and greater opportunity for recruitment. In addition, implementing career progression opportunities, again, as a way to grow our existing staff and allow them opportunities to advance in areas that they're currently working in without having to go through, without waiting for any kind of a vacancy to happen. We will be hosting our annual family event, the Family Carnival, which will be in April, the beginning of April. That'll take place at our Santan campus. So we're calling it the first annual employee engagement activity, but employees are very excited about that. We are revising our employee and faculty evaluation process to now include annual goal setting. So that's something that we are kind of in the very, very draft stages of. Looking at implementing a leadership development program at CAC. That's something that we had a really solid supervisory development program, but it's kind of taken its course and it's time to retire that and move on to something else that can really provide opportunity for growth for our up and coming leaders. In addition, rolling out that Trust Edge training to all staff. And that's something that we will be doing on all college days. So we're kind of ramping up for that and, getting our staff more involved in those types of activities. So the last that I will report on through environment is employee diversity. Employee diversity, it's a method of demonstrating diversity in the college environment and how it's reflected to the college's employee population in comparison to Pinal County. So the board set a target of 40% in the last strategic plan, the 2012-2017 strategic plan. Although we have continued to increase, as you can see, you will see a slight increase every year. We still sit a little bit below that 40%. We still continue to take measures to improve diversity and do what we can to attract diverse applicants. We heavily advertise in diverse publications for jobs, whether it's Latinos in higher ed or anything specific to an area that may be looking to recruit, if it's nursing, something of that nature. In addition, all of our recruitment selection committees require a diverse committee be selected as part of that process. So that is something that we take very serious and to ensure that we continue to try to obtain and increase this goal here. So those are the four components that we use to measure our environment. That concludes my reports of ends 5. Is there any questions that I might be able to answer? Yeah.
Chatty Cathy today. Looking at those target rates, I'm concerned that they may be unrealistic. I know the board had a chance to set them. However, I see at least 3 to 4 that should be more realistic or adjusted to growth or attitude. Can that be done? And I think that's a Dr. Elliott question.
Yeah. I think our new process for the board is that every retreat that you have, which the ones coming up in June, we will review all of the monitoring reports, and you will have a chance to give me some feedback about what's working well, what isn't working well in particular, because this is our first iteration through all this. And then we'll also need to discuss the targets, obviously, because now with the new strategic plan, some of the targets will need to be set by the board, in particular this one, since you just adopted the one from the previous strategic plan. So we do still have some adjustments to make, and in the spirit of continuous quality improvement, your feedback is going to be critical because these are your reports. They're for you, and they're designed to help us guide our day-to-day decisions. So you'll be looking at all of them, not just the ends 5, but all 42 of them in June. So that's something to look forward to.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to do a point of clarification for the audience because they may be wondering why we started with 5.6 and went through 5.9. There are 9 measures for this environment, ensure safe. And last month, Jenny and I think Chris did 5.1 through 5 that dealt with student satisfaction and other measures. So there's actually 9 measures for this particular ends.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Good
Thank you.
stuff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the announcement of the next board meeting. It will occur on April 17th, 2018, but there is a change. If you would please note, it will not be here at this campus. It will be on the Aravaipa campus. Aravaipa campus, April 17th, 2018. Same time, same place. Well, not the same place now. Just checking to see if they're still awake over there. All right. At this point in time, I would adjourn the meeting. I think we're done.